To over 3 billion football fans, it is the ultimate symbol of athletic glory. But to elite asset managers and security cartels, the FIFA World Cup Trophy is something far more volatile. 13 pounds of solid 18-karat gold worth an estimated $20 million, making it the most expensive prize in sporting history. Because of its astronomical value and a dark history of high-profile thefts, this legendary icon lives inside a secure vault in Switzerland under 24-hour armed guard. It travels only under diplomatic-style protocol, inside a custom titanium case, flanked by dedicated security escorts. This isn't just a sports trophy. It is a sovereign treasure locked behind a multi-million-dollar global security grid. Strip away the ceremony, the confetti and roar of 100,000 fans, and what remains is a physical object with a very precise financial anatomy. The current FIFA World Cup Trophy weighs 6.175 kilograms, just over 13.5 pounds. It stands 36.8 centimeters tall, and it depicts two human figures reaching up to hold the earth above their heads. The exterior shell is crafted from 18-karat gold, meaning it is 75% pure gold by composition, fused with other metals to give it strength and durability. Of that total weight, roughly 5 kilograms is gold, while the remaining mass comes from two bands of a green semi-precious stone called malachite, set into the base. Here is where the myth collides with the metallurgy. For decades, the assumption was that this trophy was solid gold from top to bottom. It is not, and there is a very good reason why. If the entire object were cast in solid gold, it would weigh somewhere between 70 and 80 kilograms, as much as an adult man. No footballer, however elated, could lift that over his head on a stadium pitch. So the trophy's designers made a critical engineering decision. They hollowed the interior, distributing the gold only across the outer shell, which preserves the visual weight and prestige of solid gold while keeping the object light enough to be raised in triumph in front of a global television audience. Now, translate that into hard currency, based purely on its raw material content, the gold and the malachite. Financial analysts place the trophy's melt value at somewhere between $250,000 and $600,000, depending on where gold prices sit in any given year. That is the price if this object were reduced to its base commodities, stripped of every ounce of meaning. But that is not how markets or FIFA value this trophy. Analysts and auction specialists routinely price its true worth at an estimated $20 million. That gap between $250,000 and $20 million is not a rounding error. It is the entire thesis of this video. It is a premium the world places on symbolism, scarcity, and historical weight. A premium so large that the raw materials account for barely 1 to 3% of the trophy's actual valuation. This is an asset class unto itself, one where the underlying commodity is almost irrelevant to price it commands. And understanding that gap is the first step to understanding why armed guards, titanium cases, and international security protocols now surround a football trophy the way they would a sovereign bond or a state jewel. To understand why today's trophy lives behind so much armor, you have to go back to its predecessor and to a history soaked in theft, war, and disappearance. The original World Cup prize was called Victory, later renamed the Jules Rimet Trophy in honor of the FIFA president who conceived the tournament. Sculpted by the French artist Abel Lafleur, it was a modest object by comparison to today's icon, gold-plated sterling silver on a base of lapis lazuli, depicting Nike, the Greek goddess of victory, holding an octagonal vessel above her head. It stood just over 35 centimeters tall and weighed under 4 kilograms. But modest size did not mean modest danger. During the Second World War, with fascist forces occupying Italy, FIFA's vice president at the time, an Italian official named Otorino Barassi, made a decision that would become World Cup legend, rather than risk the trophy falling into the hands of occupying powers. He secretly removed it from a bank vault in Rome. He then hid it, quite literally, in a shoebox beneath his bed for the remainder of the war, protecting football's highest prize from soldiers and looters with nothing more than a mattress and his own discretion. It survived the war undiscovered. But peacetime brought no peace for the trophy. In March of 1966, months before England was set to host and eventually win the tournament, the Jules Rimet Trophy was stolen from a public exhibition in London. The disappearance triggered a nationwide search and a wave of embarrassment for the host nation. It was recovered Famously, not by police detective work, but by a dog, a mixed-breed terrier named Pickles, out on a walk with his owner, sniffed out a package wrapped in newspaper hidden under a hedge. Inside was the missing trophy. Pickles became a national celebrity, later attending England's championship banquet as an honored guest. The most damaging chapter came in 1970. Brazil won the tournament for the third time that year, and under the rules Jules Rimet himself had set decades earlier, any nation to win 3 titles would keep the trophy permanently. Brazil took it home and displayed it at the headquarters of the Brazilian Football Confederation in Rio de Janeiro, protected only by a cabinet with bulletproof glass on its front. On December 19, 1983, thieves broke into the wooden rear of that same cabinet, forcing it open with a crowbar, and vanished with football's original grand prize. 4 men were later tried and convicted in absentia. The trophy itself was never recovered. Investigators and historians widely believe it was melted down for its raw gold content, its cultural and historical value obliterated for a fraction of what it was truly worth. That single act of destruction, a priceless artifact reduced to bullion in someone's furnace, is the exact scenario that FIFA's entire modern security apparatus now exists to prevent from happening twice. When Brazil's permanent claim to the Jules Rimet Trophy forced FIFA to commission an entirely new prize, the organization opened an international design competition. 53 submissions arrived from sculptors across 7 countries, each vying to create the object that would define the tournament for generations. The commission went to Italian artist Silvio Gazzaniga, whose design was selected for the 1974 World Cup in West Germany and has been used at every tournament since. Gazzaniga's concept was deceptively simple and deeply symbolic. 2 human figures spiral upward from the base, arms outstretched, hold an entire globe above their heads at the summit. It is a design about ascension, about global reach, and about the sport lifting humanity itself. But beneath that symbolism lies a genuine feat of structural engineering. The challenge Gazzaniga and the manufacturer, an Italian firm called G.D. Bertoni, had to solve was not artistic. It was physical. How do you create an object that reads as monumental and solid, made from one of the heaviest metals on Earth, while keeping it light enough for a professional athlete to hoist repeatedly above his head in front of live cameras, sometimes while sprinting, sometimes while being mobbed by teammates? The solution was a hollow shell construction already mentioned, a gold exterior wrapped around an empty interior cavity, with the malachite bands at the base serving a dual purpose. Aesthetically, the deep green stone creates dramatic visual contrast against the gold. Structurally, it lowers the trophy's center of gravity and adds a stable foundation, since malachite is considerably lighter than gold by volume. This means the trophy can be balanced, tilted, and gripped one-handed without the risk of instability that a top-heavy, solid gold object would present. Every curve in Gazzaniga's design also had to account for wear. The trophy is regularly handled barehanded by athletes in moments of extreme physical exertion, sweat, adrenaline, and sometimes champagne. The gold surface has required periodic restoration and replating over the decades precisely because of this handling, along with restorations of the malachite bands themselves. There's also a quieter piece of engineering built into the base. After each tournament, the underside is engraved with the winning nation's name and year, added to a spiral record of every champion since 1974. Space on that base is finite, and industry estimates suggest it will run out of room for new engravings sometime in the next 2 decades, meaning FIFA will eventually face a structural decision about the very artifact this section has just described. For 364 days out of most years, the real, solid gold FIFA World Cup Trophy is not anywhere near a football pitch. It resides inside the FIFA World Football Museum in Zurich, Switzerland, a city long associated with discretion, banking secrecy, and high security storage. The trophy is kept there under conditions that mirrored protection given to sovereign financial assets rather than sporting memorabilia, climate-controlled housing, restricted access, and layered physical security, designed to prevent any repeat of the 1983 catastrophe that consumed the Jules Rimet Trophy. The object only leaves a secured environment for a small number of sanctioned occasions. It appears at the official draw ceremony ahead of each tournament. It is present on the pitch for the opening match, and it makes its ultimate appearance at the final, where it is lifted by the winning captain. Beyond these tournament touchpoints, The trophy also travels as part of a promotional world tour, a program FIFA inaugurated for the 2006 World Cup, sending the trophy through dozens of countries to generate anticipation and sponsorship visibility ahead of the tournament itself. Every one of these movements is treated as a high-value asset transfer, not a ceremonial stroll. Given that the trophy is functionally irreplaceable, there is no insurance payout that restores 13 pounds of 18-karat gold sculpted with 50 years of accumulated sporting history. Its transport requires the kind of layered protocol typically reserved for state jewels or central bank gold reserves. This means dedicated security personnel accompanying the object at all times, controlled handling procedures that restrict who may touch it and under what conditions, and carefully scheduled movements that minimize the window of exposure between the vault and its destination. FIFA's own regulations state plainly that only 2 categories of people are permitted to touch the trophy's bare gold surface without gloves: players and coaches who have actually won a World Cup, and sitting heads of state. Every other hand that comes near it, celebrities, sponsors, museum staff, even FIFA officials themselves, must either wear white protective gloves or refrain from contact altogether. That rule exists as much to prevent damage to the delicate gold surface as it does to preserve the symbolic exclusivity of who is allowed to physically claim victory. If the trophy itself is the asset, then its travel case is a vault door, and FIFA turned to one of the only companies on Earth with a 160-year history of building objects for exactly this purpose. Since 2010, Louis Vuitton has served as the trophy's official casemaker, crafting a bespoke travel trunk for every World Cup cycle since South Africa, including editions built for Brazil in 2014, Russia in 2018, and Qatar in 2022. The case itself is a study in applied luxury engineering. It is covered in laser-engraved monogram titanium, a lightweight yet extremely hard-wearing material that Louis Vuitton had previously reserved for select menswear collections before adapting it for trophy transport. Each of the case's corners is reinforced with natural cowhide leather to absorb impact, while the lock and 6 surrounding clasps are manufactured from ruthenium, a dense, dark gray metal chosen specifically for its strength and resistance to corrosion. Inside, the trophy sits nestled against soft leather padding on a fitted base designed to prevent any movement or contact damage during transit, whether that transit is a short ceremonial walk across a stadium pitch or an international flight between continents. This case is built by the same artisans in the same historic Asnières workshop outside Paris, who have constructed custom trunks for a startling roster of clients across a century and a half, a fold-out trunk bed for a 19th century African explorer, a portable library and typewriter trunk for Ernest Hemingway, and a mobile tea service trunk for an Indian Maharaja. The World Cup trophy case belongs to that same lineage of purpose-built luxury objects, engineered not for everyday use, but for a singular, high-stakes function performed only a handful of times per tournament cycle. Louis Vuitton has since expanded this specialty into a broader business line, becoming the exclusive trophy case provider for the NBA's Larry O'Brien Trophy, the Rugby World Cup's Webb Ellis Cup, the Davis Cup, and the America's Cup, effectively cornering an entire niche market in the physical security and presentation of the world's most valuable sporting prizes. What began as a one-off commission for South Africa in 2010 has become a recurring, branded ritual, proof that even a vessel built to protect an asset can itself become a marketable, prestige-driven commodity. Here is the detail that surprises most casual viewers of the tournament. The nation that wins the World Cup final does not get to keep the trophy raised on that pitch. The genuine 18-karat gold original is only ever present on the field for the closing whistle and the immediate podium celebration. Within a short window after the ceremony concludes, FIFA officials retrieve the authentic trophy and return it to secure custody, ultimately flying it back to Zurich. In its place, the winning nation receives a separate object entirely, officially called the World Cup Winners' Trophy, a gold-plated bronze replica that is theirs to keep permanently. This arrangement is a direct response to the failure of the old system. Recall that under the jules rimet rules, Brazil's third championship in 1970 earned them permanent ownership of the actual trophy, a decision that led directly to its theft and presumed destruction in Rio de Janeiro just 13 years later. FIFA rewrote the rules specifically to prevent that outcome from ever repeating. By retaining permanent ownership of the one authentic gold object and distributing bronze replicas to champions, FIFA insulates its most valuable physical asset from the security failures, insurance liabilities, and outright loss that come with letting individual national federations store a multi-million-dollar object indefinitely on their own soil. This creates a fascinating asymmetry in how the trophy is perceived versus how it actually functions as an asset. Nations like Argentina, France, Germany, and Brazil proudly display their winners' trophies in federation headquarters, museums, and training facilities, treating them as sacred national symbols. Yet none of these countries possesses so much as a gram of the original gold. The real trophy remains centralized, singular, and permanently under FIFA's institutional control in Switzerland. The same centralization strategy used by sovereign wealth funds and central banks that prefer to hold a nation's actual gold reserves in a small number of highly secure vaults rather than disperse them. FIFA has essentially applied that same logic to a sporting trophy, retaining sole custody of the singular appreciating asset, while distributing symbolic, low-value replicas to satisfy public sentiment and national pride. It is a masterclass in separating the emotional value of an object from its financial custody. Every layer of security, every custom case, and every carefully worded ownership rule ultimately serves one final function: protecting the commercial engine built around this single gold object. The FIFA World Cup Trophy is not merely guarded because it is valuable. It is guarded because an entire global marketing ecosystem depends on its uninterrupted mystique. The Trophy World Tour alone, launched in 2006, sends the object through dozens of countries ahead of each tournament, generating localized media coverage, sponsorship activation events, and public appearances that feed directly into the billions of dollars FIFA generates through broadcasting rights and commercial partnerships tied to the tournament. Consider the layers of brand value stacked around this one artifact. Luxury houses like Louis Vuitton attach their name to its transport and gain sustained global visibility every 4 years. Visibility that translates into their own capsule collections and marketing campaigns timed to tournament cycles. Broadcasters build entire commercial breaks around the ceremonial reveal of the trophy at the final. Host nations build tourism and civic pride campaigns around brief appearances of the object on their own soil during the World Tour. And FIFA itself leverages the trophy's singular, irreplaceable status as the emotional centerpiece of sponsorship packages sold to multinational corporations for hundreds of millions of dollars per cycle. None of this commercial machinery would function the same way if the trophy were common, replaceable, or insured away as just another piece of hardware. Its value has to remain scarce, singular, and protected in order for the surrounding economy of broadcasting deals, luxury partnerships, and national pride campaigns to justify the numbers involved. In this sense, the armed guards, the Swiss vault, and the titanium travel case are not simply protecting 6 kilograms of gold. They are protecting the scarcity premium that makes an entire multi-billion-dollar commercial ecosystem possible. Strip away the mythology, the security convoy, and the ceremonial gloves, and you are left with the central paradox of the story: a football trophy, worth perhaps $500,000 in raw materials, has been transformed through history, scarcity, and institutional strategy into a $20 million sovereign asset. Proof that in the modern economy, the most valuable thing an object can possess is not its substance, but the story engineered around it.